Welcome everyone to this pre-conference session of AAC in the Cloud. We're excited to have you here. Today we have with us Laura Taylor, and her presentation is It Can Be Done, Communication, Literacy, and Math in the Secondary Special Education Classroom. And we'll turn things over to her.
Thanks, Melissa. As Melissa said, I'm Laura Taylor, and I represent Taylor Educational Consultants at this point. And so I want to share with you an experience I had a few years ago, and kind of how communication, literacy, and math can be done in the secondary special education classroom. 3 years ago, I guess 4 years ago now, in the summer of 2017, I was interviewing for a classroom position. And in that interview, the committee said, if we hire you, which classroom would you choose? And these were the two choices. Classroom A, a high school classroom with obviously special education students who would be mainstreamed into general education classrooms with support, or Classroom B, which would be a new classroom, secondary age students, for students with autism, significant behaviors and communication difficulties. And so, at first blush, I thought, well, kind of where I was coming from was I wanted Classroom B, and the spoiler alert is that I did choose Classroom B. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about me and why I would choose Classroom B. So I'm a special ed classroom teacher by training, and for the first about 28 years of my career, I taught mostly early childhood special education and in-home, and spent my time in those classrooms really working on with a team of a speech language pathologist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, doing monthly themes as one would do in early childhood. And our focus was really on early literacy experiences. So everything we did was focused around early literacy, using books with young children. Very, very much speech and language focused. Our kids' goals and objectives were really all around building vocabulary and kind of making those kinds of things happen. My frustration towards the end of those early childhood years were that our kids were not really leaving our classroom any further along in terms of their ability to communicate, as far as I knew, right? I'm not a speech language pathologist, but I was feeling like something was missing and I didn't know what it was. And I attended an introduction to POD, pragmatic organization, dynamic display training. And I realized that what we were doing in our classroom, though it was very helpful, and our kids, benefited obviously from time in our classroom, but what we weren't doing was really kind of focusing in on the language piece, and communication in general, and how kids move through that. So with that kind of POD lens, I thought, this is something I really want to explore. And so after those 28 years in the classroom, I went to work for Alt-Shift, which is a Michigan Department of Education Office of Special Education project. And when I was first hired, I was hired as an accessibility specialist, and really focusing on the accessibility of the physical and curricular environment, how kids with special needs were one, getting in the building, and two, accessing the curriculum. And that was really where my focus lay. And so over the next year or so, I really became more and more focused on communication. The POD training kind of stuck into my head, and I attended an advanced training and realized that what we really needed to be doing was focusing on communication, because without communication, it's really hard to learn and to be taught. And so my position at Alt-Shift kind of shifted into more of a communication specialist and focus on AAC. And I learned a lot. During that time, we, along with two colleagues, we developed the hashtag Talking AAC conference that just wrapped up in May, because our focus really was all about communication and how we can help students with significant disabilities to communicate. In that time, then I became a POD trainer, and started doing trainings around the state, and realized that, and around the United States, and realized that what we were doing was, communication was really huge, but also, the literacy and math were really important as well. So I chose Classroom B because after those nearly 6 years of providing educators around our state with information about the benefits of AAC, I wanted to know if it really worked. Does it really work within the classroom, and will it work with these students? Like, these are pretty difficult students, and how are we going to make this happen? And so I had not yet attended the trainings, the comprehensive literacy trainings with Doctors Copenhaver and Erickson, but I knew enough to be dangerous, I guess, and started to implement early efforts, or decided that I would use those early efforts in the classroom without the benefit of the training. I had seen Karen Erickson at Talking AAC that year, and decided to jump in with both feet and just see if it would work. And so, my big question in the back of my head, could I affect change? What would need to happen in order for this to be successful in the classroom? And so I had to start with a redesign in the classroom. When so I got the job, went into the classroom, and it really looked like a living room. It looked like a place where my students could be really comfortable and enjoy their day. It did not look like a classroom. So I spent, quite a bit of time redesigning the classroom to look like a classroom where education and learning was going to happen. In my mind, the change needed to be that we were going to design the room for communication, literacy, and math instruction. That's what we needed to do. And so in that process, we developed I decided to develop a structure and a routine that would help us, get to where we needed to go. And so this is kind of the pictures of, oops, sorry, I think we lost a picture there. Sorry. So this is the picture of the classroom in August, and you see the big couch there. And so when I was first in the classroom, and when I came in, there were several recliners and this couch. And in meeting with my new teaching assistant, I asked about the couch, and she said, please don't take the couch away. Please leave the couch, because there was one student in particular who needed to have the couch because that was what his day was like. And so I said, okay, I'll leave the couch for a while until December. And so we decided in December that we would go ahead and move the couch out then, but try to wean him off the couch. And so this is what the classroom looked like before, like just kind of getting the classroom set up. And then as more and more my thoughts and ideas came around, making sure that what we were doing was right, I wanted to embed communication and literacy throughout the room. And so I was able to print out some of the poster size core boards that you see on the table. And I had a lot of other curricular materials that I wanted to put around the room. So this was getting ready. And then on the first day of school, this is what this is what our days were going to look like, right? So you see on the left-hand side of our whiteboard is the visual schedule for the morning and the afternoon. This was going to be our day. We were going to be looking at learning targets, and our communication was available and, within arm's reach. And so, this was kind of, for me, kind of square one. And we moved forward from there. So let me tell you a little bit about my students. My students were 4 young men, ages 13, 14, 17, and 23. And I know a lot of people right off the bat are going to say you only had 4 students. But the reason there were these 4 students in here, remember, I was told they had significant disabilities, significant behaviors, and communication challenges. And what I found out was that these students were selected for this new classroom by the previous year's teachers. And they were selected based upon the most difficulty that these students provided to the classrooms. Like if you could choose 2 students or 1 student from your classroom who could go somewhere else, pick that student. And so that's kind of what happened. So the 4 students I had in my classroom had significant behaviors. There was a lot of aggressive behavior from on the part of all 4 students. All of them had a diagnosis of autism. 3 of them were non-speaking. One was a speaking individual, but he had few communicative functions. So that's kind of the age of my students, why they were there, and I want to share with you their previous IEP goals, because I think this is important to think about. Kind of a conglomeration. Among their IEP goals were shaving, brushing teeth, matching colors and shapes, identifying self in pictures. Now remember, we're talking about teens and young adults. Taking out the trash, washing windows with 100% accuracy. So I've got to roll my eyes just a little bit at that because I don't wash windows with 100% accuracy, but I'm not even sure what that meant, but that was a goal. And expanding engagement in non-preferred activities from 1 to 10 minutes. I had some concerns about that goal because I knew that if it was a non-preferred activity, 1 minute would be enough to pose behavioral challenges. And expanding that to 10 minutes would either result in one of 2 things: bigger behavior challenges, or they'd begin to like it, therefore it would be no longer non-preferred. So I had some concerns with that goal. And then following a schedule of 4 activities: to sign in, to change the date, to brush teeth, and then couch. So that's why the couch was there. It was actually part of a goal. So the student spent the majority of the day, once he did those three schedule activities, could have the couch the rest of the day. So so then I knew we were really kind of up against the wall, but we took it on anyway and moved forward. And so our first days of school definitely filled with uncertainty on both the staff and student part. The staff, I had 1 assistant to begin the year, and we ended up with 2 assistants within about 5 weeks of school starting, just because, the behaviors indicated that we needed more staff to student ratio at that point. And so this was not a walk in the park. This was the first days of school were very physically demanding. We had a lot of aggressive behaviors towards the staff. Students ran out of the room. It was a tricky first few days of school. But once the students realized that the routine wasn't going to change from day to day, they found safety in that. And so what we found was that the routines really provided a structure and a place that was safe, and they didn't have to worry about what was going to happen. And so we could really get into our learning and what our days were going to look like. And so what changed? And I get asked this question quite a bit: what would you change about a day to make sure that, for a secondary classroom, that things would happen? And I have to say everything changed. We had new adult routines, which I'm going to talk about, new student IEP goals, and a new daily routine schedule. Absolutely everything changed, and I want to share that with you and how you can do these same sorts of things. I'm going to start with the new adult routines because the adults in our setting, the teaching assistants, had come from classrooms where a lot of the responsibility for taking care of the students landed with the teaching assistants. And what changed for them was that one of the things that we were going to focus on was communication, and that we were going to model or demonstrate what communication looked like all day long. Neither of my assistants had experience or extensive experience with AAC, so that was a learning curve for them. I made them pod books to start to model and demonstrate what communication looks like. So that was a big change. The flip side of that was for them to provide students opportunities to communicate in whatever mode they chose. So Most of our students were using behavior, and so initially we attended to that and modeled how students could communicate, what was happening for them in a different way rather than in behaviors. So that was a change. Their jobs were then to support the instruction. And so, and the all hands on deck is really important here, because with the group we had the large group of 4 students really turned into 3 groups. We had 1 student, 2 students who were individuals, received individual instruction, and then 2 students who were grouped together. And so each of us worked with a group for a week, and then we switched groups. So all hands were on deck, in that we had to be really hyper aware of what we were doing, so that at the beginning of each week we could meet and inform each other about the progress that was being made and then what direction to take next. And so we were all 100% involved in the instruction and reporting on what was happening with our students. The new IEP goals for 3 of our students, really, these were the 3 students who were non-speaking students, and our goals turned into focuses of the development of literacy skills. So identifying letters initially, because none of the 3 students, the 13, 14, and 17-year-old, knew letters of the alphabet. Focused on development of math skills. We instead of working on matching colors and shapes, we decided to jump right into number concepts and see how far we could go with that. And then focus on the development of communication, because though each of them had a pod book from before, they were really kind of used as I don't know, lassos. They were on really long strings and they kind of swung them around. But our focus on the development of communication was to increase their pragmatics and decrease adult prompts to use communication. So what we were looking to do with communication was really to develop their autonomy. And so for those 3 students, those were key. For our 4th student, because he was somewhat literate, quite literate actually, we needed to work on the comprehension of his digital and print materials. So when we were working with him, we needed to make sure that he understood what he was reading and could demonstrate his comprehension. And for him, because we had started, his schedule went from 3 items to an entire day of instruction. What we needed to make sure was that he could follow that written schedule for instruction, ultimately leading to him being able to transition into a workplace so that he could follow a written schedule in a workplace. And in that workplace, what we needed to help develop for him were math skills. Money management really was our main focus with him, understanding money, understanding, all of that, weighing food items. He had a job working in the summer, but he wasn't really aware, and it was in food service. So we wanted to make sure that he was aware of weights and dividing and, being able to fulfill orders based on weights and those sorts of things, which was his job. But he needed a lot of adult interaction to make that happen. And what we wanted to do was get him to the point where he understood weights and money management and could do that, again, autonomously. So new student IEP goals, and then the day routine, like what changed? Like I said, everything in the daily routine. And so our day was really divided into, our morning was all around literacy instruction, and our afternoon was all around math instruction. So in the mornings, the guys came to school and we had breakfast, and because most of them had spent a good deal of time on the bus coming to school, after breakfast, we went outside for a 10-minute walk or swing or some sort of movement outside in the backyard of the school. Because we know that the brain works better if it's activated. We wanted movement to do that. So when we came in from outside, we would have our morning meeting, and we'd start. This is a picture of us practicing handshakes. So we did handshake greetings because and at the time that was an appropriate greeting. I'm not sure, probably fist bumps are the best thing to do now, but we were doing handshake greetings at the time and making sure that our students had that ability and that understanding that that's what we do when we meet someone or greet someone. And then we reviewed our learning targets for the day, and then began literacy instruction. So kind of falling right into that, you can kind of see this was what our board looked like every day. So what we did was we turned this calendar time really into a math lesson. So we talked about what the date was, October 13th. Every day we would fill that date in, and when we were counting days, we decided at the beginning of the year to do 10 frames. And so you can see what happened was from the very first day of school, we built a 10 frame on the board, and each day one of the students would put a dot in it and we would count one. And when we got that first group of one, that became a group of 10. So one in the tens place and 0 in the ones place. And then as we went along, each group of 10 became another add-on. And so as you can imagine, by the end of the school year, we had 183 days or whatever we had of instruction. So our 10 frames grew along the board, and our learning targets kind of moved over to the middle of the board. But just so you get an idea, this is what our calendar started out like. We didn't do weather because most of our students didn't have a choice about what they were wearing. And so we can look out the window and understand what the weather's doing. So we would cover our learning targets, what we were working on for the day. You can see we've got math, number concepts, and size, literacy. For one of the students, we were working on the word families, and the other students, we were working on the core words down at the bottom. And then our communication focus, each week, we would have a different communication focus that we as the adults were focusing on to make sure that our students had access to understanding the different communication functions. And so those were the communication functions for this week, was to direct communication. Okay, so this was kind of out of order, but September, so you can kind of see what we were doing again, just the communication goals, the 10 frames, what we were doing with literacy, core, and math. But that's what our board looked like every day, whatever we were working on. So our morning routine then, once we got into the literacy activities, we started with the emergent literacy activities like letter of the day, the alphabetic and phonological awareness. Letter of the day, the letter sound, how to make the letter. So we would draw that on the board, and talk about making the letter sound using Karen's words, say it in your head. I'm going to say it out loud, you say it in your head. So we did all of those kinds of activities, and then we would find a letter in our environment. So I would ask the guys to look around the room, look within their communication systems to find letters in the environment. Once I had the training, I realized we were probably supposed to find words that started with that letter, but we were looking for letters in the environment. I would make a list, and then we'd have the students come up and look for the letter within that list of words. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So that was one part of the very first part of our day. And after that activity, we would move groups. So we'd physically get up and move to another part of the room where we would do our shared reading and our predictable chart writing. And so each day we did shared reading based upon our core words. So we used Tar Heel Reader to make a lot of books that we would use for shared reading. And then again, our predictable chart writing would align with our core words and as well as the letter of the day. So I'll show you some pictures of that as well. Following that, we used Starfall, which is an online site that we use to reinforce the alphabetic awareness and phonological awareness. We used IXL to support language arts instruction. And then once we finished with those 5 activities, basically, we would go to small group and individual instruction. So our morning routine usually started around 9:15 or 9:20 and lasted until about 11:20, 11:30. So it was a good nearly 2 hours that we spent on communication and language arts, really, and phonological awareness. That emergent literacy piece. So for 3/4 of the students, so 3 of the 4 guys, were really in that emergent literacy piece. And so again, if you're familiar with this, you know what these are about: alphabetic awareness, shared reading, predictable chart writing, independent writing and symbol-based communication. And so for us to make sure that you know, that we were addressing the communication needs, we all again modeled and demonstrated what communication looked like with our pod books, with the students' communication systems, with whatever we had, core boards and different activity displays, which you'll see in a few minutes. So this is kind of the beginning of our day, where you can see the core board just before you go outside in the room. This is the alphabet and phonological awareness. So communication was everywhere. These were our groups. So this was one group where we were starting this activity where we would identify the letter A. This is the letter A. It makes the sound A. I'll say it while you say it in your head. So we practiced that with each of our students. Again, that's how we made our letter I just drew the writing lines on the board and showed how we constructed those letters. Some of the students would trace them. You can kind of see the list of words on the right, where we would come up with about 10 words, and the students would then take turns and circle the letter of the day. For our shared reading, again, we created our books in Tar Heel Reader. They reflected our core words, and our students would follow along by touching the words in the book as we read them. They touched each word, and they were also using their communication system sometimes to read along. If they wanted to, if we were reading a book about going or whatever, they would sometimes go into their communication systems and read along from their systems. And so I've got some videos. So this is just a quick video. One of our core words, this book was about gone, the word gone. And so we were reading this book we created, and I'll just
It's your turn, Jaden. Yep, gone. The pop is gone. Nice reading. It's your turn to read.
So you can see, in that video, the students are reading along as I'm reading. The pop is gone. They're reading along with their fingers, and moving through the text that way. So each student would read the page, and then we'd move on. Now I know I didn't do everything according to Hoyle with the shared reading, but because I hadn't had the training yet, but we did the best we could with what we had. Then we moved into our predictable chart writing. And so again, this was a brand new classroom, and I had to begin the year, it was a while before I had all of the materials that would come in via the school order. So I didn't have a chart. So what we used was the whiteboard. And so the letter of the day was P, and our core word was look, it's a. And so we used that phrase to build our predictable chart writing. As the year moved on, and as our supplies came in, we moved to the actual chart writing, where on Monday we would construct the sentence. On Tuesday, we would construct the sentence and cut the sentence apart, and then our students would take them to do our individual work. They would cut their words apart and then be the sentence in our individual groups. Because we only had 4 students, it was really hard to be the sentence with our group. So we had the students work with that skill, being the sentence, at their tables with their words after they'd been cut apart. So again, just another example of the predictable chart writing that we did on the whiteboard. Following the predictable chart writing, we did Starfall, again, supported learning the letters of the alphabet, the alphabetical awareness, and the opportunity to develop writing skills by writing on the vertical surface. So helping our students didn't have good writing skills. They hadn't had that. And so in order to do that, to develop those writing skills, we wanted to get them on the vertical surface to build strength in their upper bodies to be able to do that. So I'm just going to show you a couple of quick examples of using Starfall to support this, the alphabetical awareness.
Find an animal.
Koala.
Koala. Let's find the letter K. Nice job. Nice job circling the word koala. Oh, who wants to help? Zachary helped. Oh, it's Jaden's turn. Jaden, come look for an animal
I'm
that
gonna
begins with
stop
K.
that there, because one of the things I wanted to share with you too is about that student in that video. He wore his pod book every day. He was very proud of his pod book and never took it off, which was awesome, because in previous years he really kind of used that as more of a weapon. And as you can see, I'm also wearing mine. So we were consistently providing models of communication and demonstration of communication. I want to share with you another student with Starfall. This is what I like about Starfall. I know it's kind of juvenile, but it hit everything I needed to hit, and I thought it's what I knew at the time that I could use to be able to support our instruction.
Zachary, can you help? Can you help find the letter that starts with fan? Which letter says? Nice work. And. Nice job, buddy.
And I love that video clip because that was a student that for whom he chose the sound of that made F, right, and completed the word fan. And I think what's important here is that we believed our students could learn, and so there was nothing that was off the table. I'm not sure previous to this what beliefs were held, but we believed our students could learn and progress in literacy skills. And so I'm just really proud of some of the things that our guys were able to do. Once we did our Starfall activity, then we did a little bit of IXL because our school had a subscription to that, which again supported language arts instruction for both our emergent and conventional students. And I'll just show you a couple of other quick videos. This was one just matching word to the picture.
Dry. Wet. Which dog is dry? Which dog is wet? You have to move them first. Wet. Let's do this. Wet. Good. Dry. Nice job, buddy.
So one thing, a critique of myself was that I kept putting my hands in there, but every time he'd grab that marker, it would be so flimsy in his hands. So I just wanted to get it into his hand in a position where he could actually be successful with that. So I had to learn to back off. And this is just another example.
One is sitting, one is standing. What does that say? Nice. Nice. Thanks, Jeannie. Excellent. Thanks, Jeannie.
So the thanks, Jeannie. So so our student really loved Disney movies and would so anytime whenever he had a thank you, thanks, Jeannie was his typical response for that. So again, we use IXL to incorporate into our day, into our instruction, and support the literacy learning for our students. From that group, then we went to our small group instruction where we focused on writing. We focused on reviewing the alphabet and core word vocabulary in books in our groups. So what we learned in our first part of the day, we worked on in small group instruction and reiterated in small group instruction. This is where we used our predictable chart writing and to be the sentence, and then incorporated the communication systems in the learning. And so some of the videos I want to show you are, one, we helped the students to learn motor plans for some of the phrases that we were using when we put our core words together from our core word vocabulary and instruction. We were helping them to learn the motor plan within their personal communication systems, expanding on their communication functions, composing phrases and sentences. So this was really an intense period of time for our students, which lasted about an hour each day. But it was just really full of time. So before our students, and these two students in particular, were together because their language levels were similar, and their academic levels were similar. And so this was prior to them obtaining their personal communication devices. And so in this video, you're going to see the teaching assistant using her pod book to demonstrate for them, as well as core words that were on the table, what was happening.
I can, David. And I, yes, you can play. Yes, I can. I can play. Good looking. Who can play? I can. Yes, I can. I can. Yes. Good job. I can do anything I want. Thank you. Yeah, that was a good story.
So I love her interaction. It just, just being able to, to support the communication efforts of our students was top of mind for all of us every single day. So I want to show you this video. This is one of our students being the sentence. So I don't know how my assistant came up with this method, but I loved it. So they had already cut his sentence apart, and they were going to practice being the sentence. So I'm going to play this video for you because I think it's important to never underestimate what our students are capable of. This was in about a week of, or 2 weeks of introducing the predictable chart writing to our students. It was less than 3 weeks in, and this student was beginning to compose the sentence. So just take a look at this.
All right,
one.
read the sentence. Let me see. I like to play swimming. Good. So I'm going to put your words up here and I want you to build your sentence. I like to play swimming. I like to, I saw you skip one. I like to, you skipped another one. Start again. I like to play swimming. So I'm going to mix these up, guys. I'm going to mix them up. Can you build your sentence? I like to play swimming. I like to play swimming. Good job.
So the beautiful thing about that again is that, we did not underestimate him, and he rose to the expectation that things would happen. It was really exciting to kind of see that happen. So being the sentence, being able to put his sentences together, we could put them in any order at any time, and he was reading the sentences, and that was very exciting to see. In this video clip, she's working on the phrase "I see," and helping him to learn the motor plan. They had just gotten their systems, and we were starting to put phrases in, the core word phrases together, and helping them to learn to put those into the motor memory within their communication system. So she was using a book, a Tar Heel Reader book about colors, to be able to help learn that skill of using I see within his system.
I see the color blue. Zachary, I see. I see. Good job. Zachary, I see the color purple. I see the color purple.
I C. I see.
You see the color purple too? Good. Ooh, I see the color pink. Pink, I see. Do you see?
I see. I see.
That's great. How about brown?
Stop that one there. I think, the important thing is, we talk about repetition with moderate differences. So he got the repetition through that whole book using I see. And over the course of the school year, his ability to navigate his system really improved. And he didn't get his system until his personal system that was his until I think early January, late December, early January. So for him to learn this and to start to move forward so quickly, it just tells me that it's been in there. He just hasn't had an effective method to get it out. So this is another student, working on, I think it was IC. So we'll take a
I
look.
see the letter L. Jaden, I see. I see. Jaden,
C. U.
I see, that's right. I see. I see. I see, Jaden. I
C. I see.
I see. Very
see.
good.
I see.
All right, Jaden, I do see the letter
And
L.
I'll stop that one there as well. I think so a couple of things to note here. We were reiterating the letter of the alphabet. So constantly teaching the letters of the alphabet through different parts of the day, and incorporating into that activity the importance of the communication system and developing that motor plan for those phrases. We did writing practice. So this was one of our students, writing skills. It was early. And so, at 13 years of age, we can see that he really didn't have a whole lot of progress or probably access to writing. And so what we needed to make sure of was that we weren't forcing the writing itself as a writing, but looking at alternative ways to write. And so this is the same student using an iPad app to help. I can't even remember the name of the app, but it was like writing letters or something. Anyway, he practiced writing letters on the screen, and then obviously his communication system's right there. So he always had that available to him to be able to talk about whatever we were doing. So, just throughout the day, not just at our tables, but, he would choose the iPad to do during leisure. You can see this is kind of a end of lunchtime kind of idea. We used a guided writing kind of process. I call it guided writing because our students did not write. And so what we introduced at first was a paper keyboard, a laminated paper keyboard. And so we would provide the topic, and I know this is not right. Now I know after having been trained, but at the time I didn't know. So we used the letter of the day to kind of guide what we were doing with writing. So I'll show you in a second what happened. We would start off with a actually, I'll just go there. So this is what our writing looked like. So we'd start off with a picture that coincided with the letter of the day. And then we had the keyboard there for the students to touch the letters. And we, as the adults, interpreted or gave meaning to, we just gave meaning to whatever letter they chose. So you can see on the left, this was in November. A few things to look at. In November, they touched N, Z, C, D, and I. And so the partner would write down an interpretation of that letter. N for nighttime, it is getting to be nighttime. The ducks were on the pond. It's a colorful scene, and I would like to be there. But I want you to notice too, in the upper right-hand corner, asking them to write their name. It was scribbles in November. By January, they were choosing letters on the keyboard to spell their names. Now, it's not how he spelled his name. It's not QWED, but but it was choosing letters. When we talked about spelling their names, they chose letters to do that. Again, whatever letters they touched on the keyboard, we interpreted, or the partner interpreted meaning around what the topic was. This is the same student in February. The scribbling for the name still, evident. And by the end of the school year, the student was spelling his name in his communication system. And so, again, I know this wasn't the right way to do it, but I want to show kind of the progression. The other thing that we did towards the end of the year, and I'll just kind of go through each one as I'm talking, is we incorporated the EAT, the expanding expression tool. And again, I know this isn't what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be student led, but I didn't know that at the time, but what we incorporated was kind of guiding. That's why I call it guided writing, guided the students as to expanding and what they could talk about, what kinds of things they could do. So with those, with the expanding expression tool, we were also able to use, you can see that on the left in February, the different colors of the EAT tool. Where we were able to use, like, where does it come from? Green group, what group is it? What category does it belong in? Blue do, what does it do? Does it have actions? Where do we find it? So we would go to, places or locations in our communication system. So being able to then expand into the communication system more, to be able to allow them to understand that these are the kinds of things we're talking about. You can talk about these different things within your communication system by doing all of these different, different places and ways to talk about them. So as you can see, whoops, am I going the wrong way? No. So then our one student with individual instruction was with conventional instruction. We used guided reading with him, word identification and decoding, writing, and independent reading. And these are his writing samples. At the beginning of the year, really, or in November, really just kind of large letters, did not really have a concept of writing space. But so we started to kind of make the space smaller for him, to try to refine the writing a little bit. Some of the words you can make out, like, for example, in the one on the right about a walrus, what does it look like? It's lumpy, which I thought was great. So, but you could pick out some of the words that he was writing. Obviously, we needed to refine quite a bit, but also we looked more toward the electronic keyboard or the keyboard on the computer for him to do writing, which was much more effective for him than the laborious process of writing with a pencil. It just wasn't going to ever be, for him, an effective mode of writing. With him, we worked on making words. So we did, making word activities with him in his instruction. For some of our students, for our other 3 students who were still working on that writing practice, we put paper on the wall and practiced again on that vertical surface with writing. By the end of the year, what we were starting to work on was writing sentences and really focusing in on that literacy piece. Finding the letters within words. So the letter of the day was replaced each day, and the sentences were replaced each day. And our students would find those letters not only on the whiteboard, but then in their individual instruction. So reinforced all day long. Communication was everywhere. This was the focus of our really of our classroom. These are 2 of 6 core boards that you would see around the room. We were never more than 3 feet away from communication. You can see on the wall over there to the left of the writing paper are 2 activity boards that had to do with writing in particular. One had writing, an activity display about writing, and then the other one was colors and design. And then on each surface, whatever surface we were at, we had communications opportunities in the form of activity displays on every surface. So this table right in front of at the front of the picture is food. It's where we ate every day. The table in the back was one of our instructional tables. So we had a core board as well as reading and writing vocabulary attached to the table. So there was communication everywhere. I showed these pictures too because communication became such an important part of our students' school day, that this student in particular who seemed to be not interested in communication and had previously used his book as a kind of a weapon, took it out onto the playground during our breaks, our movement breaks, and would explore his communication system. So on the left, he's out on the playground just looking through his book, at what vocabulary is available in the multi-purpose room. So a movement time for him, he would go in and sometimes bounce on the ball and look to see what communication, what his communication system held for him. We went to a camp in the spring. Communication systems are on both staff and students on the left. And then that same student, he ended up with an iPad with Proloquo to go, but used his system, again, exploring his system out on the playground. So really, communication was everywhere. It was a huge focus of our classroom. This is that same student, and I covered up all of his face except the big smile because he was so excited to be at camp and have a way to talk about it. Just a huge shift for all of our students. So our core vocabulary, again, at every exit to the room, we used all kinds of communication systems in our classroom. We used the core vocabulary, we used our activity displays and our robust communication systems seamlessly. So before the students would go out, they would build us a sentence, I can go. We started off with I, and then I can, and then I can go, or I go, and then I can go. And then one student one day built that 5-word phrase, I can go, look more. And we were thrilled because, he built that independently and autonomously. And of course, we celebrated that. There's our aided language displays at mealtime, really allowing us to be able to talk specifically about food, but as well, we also had all of our systems available so we could talk in depth. Our afternoon schedule, I'm going to move through a little bit quicker. Again, we had lunch, we'd go outside for movement again, get our movement through, get our bodies moving, come back in, review the letter of the day, found the letter in the environment, so we did that twice. Number of days in school, we reviewed that because then our afternoon was really more of our math focus. So we reviewed the number of days in school, and then we'd get up and we'd move over to our shared reading area. But this time it was with a math focus. So the books that we created in Tar Heel Reader had a math focus. So all numbers or, some sort of math focus for our shared reading. We did math group work with IXL. And then we went to our individual and small group work with math. So 3 of our students were working on number concepts, and we used the foundations of math for students with significant disabilities, the strategies and the ideas behind that math focus, and that if you haven't used those principles, it's really significant and really made a difference for our students. So we use those strategies for our students in math, for our 3 students in math who were kind of at that early learning of math. And then our 4th student, the concepts of money, weight, place value, and we used math instruction with IXL for him. I want to just show you, so this is, let's see, 10, 11, 110, 118, 19 days into the school year. As you can see that our 10 frames grew by the day and by the week. And so math was a constant focus each time we had our group. I'm going to show you a couple of videos. These are using the strategies for math with students, foundations of math for students with significant disabilities. And this was our one student whose one of their goals was to increase his time in a non-preferred activity from 1 to 10 minutes. And I'm not sure how many students would use math as a preferred activity, but this video takes 1.5 minutes. So we know we've already increased his time. But as a side note, I will say that this student increased his time on task from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year up to 90 minutes twice a day. So I just want to share this video with him on the math, foundations of math for students.
All right, Eddie, ready? Here we go. We're gonna turn the page. Here's 3 horses. Ready? 4. Yep. 1, 2, put it down. 3, your turn. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. Good job. Here we go. Here's 4 horses. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is your turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. 4. Good job, Ed. Here's your turn. Here's 5 horses. 1.
I'm going to stop that video just because I wanted to share with you that using those principles of foundations for math with students with significant disabilities, using that counting 1-to-1 correspondence and then referring to that in the communication system really helps cement that for all of our students. And so this one again is using the foundations of math, but including one of our Tar Heel reader books and a communication system. So I want to show you this one.
4. Count the 4 pumpkins. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many, Jaden? How many?
5.
Not 5. We counted 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Where's 4?
3. 3.
Not 3, not 5,
5. 6.
not 5, 4.
4.
Thank you, buddy. Zachary, it's your turn. 4 friends, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many, Zachary? More? More? How many?
4.
Nice job, Zachary.
So you can see we're incorporating the communication system within the activity, finding the numbers, being able to go to more and then numbers and then pressing the 4 for him. Just really helps to kind of solidify all of that for them. Our math instruction for our individual student who was looking at place value, we designated the red popsicle stick as a group of 10. And the singles, the wood colored ones as singles. And so whenever this was an activity that we would use with him, we would change up the numbers in the 10 frame and he, however we would work with that, whatever our lesson was at the time, we would work on those. So we're working on place value with whatever strategies we had available to us, but all tying that back to the math instruction with him. For this student in particular, he was our student who was a speaking student, but with few functions. We had a pod book for him that was a 2-page opening book, so growing his language. But what that allowed him to do was have topics available, so the categories available, so he could talk about categories, math, those number concepts within the math. He could also talk about other things that, where he could, places where he could talk about math or places where he would work and those sorts of ideas. Though he was verbal, again, he didn't have a lot of communicative functions. And so having that book available with all of the categories and ideas that he could talk about really kind of helped to expand his communication strategies and functions. I want to show you a little bit of, and I'm going to kind of skip forward. This is our student who's working on math in IXL. I'm going to start the video and then I'm going to kind of move it forward. This is a really great example of I do it, we do it, you do it, where the assistant is pointing out the digits or the coins for the student to count and then releasing that responsibility over to the student. So I'm going to start it and then I'm going to move it forward.
10, 20, 21, 22.
Very good, PJ. You got this. This is how much?
10,
And
15,
15 plus 1?
16.
Very good, PJ. Can you do that? Count. What's your dime?
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
Very good, PJ. You are counting money.
So you can kind of see she gave him time to do it himself and then jumped in there to give him the support. And I'm going to kind of move it ahead to, you can still see she's kind of pointing still, and then he takes over.
22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
Yes, 26 cents. What you got there?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes, 10 cents. How much money you got?
All right, I'm going to move on. But I think it's just really important to kind of watch that progression of her supporting his learning and then moving through that. So at the end of the math lesson was we had about 20 minutes at the end of the day where we would go outside and move before the buses came. So our days were packed, but what did we see, right? What were the results? Every student obtained a personal communication device. 2 were electronic and 2 remained with low tech. Every student participated in instruction every day, all day. The one student who started the previous year with 4 actions on his schedule and then was allowed to rest the rest of the day on the couch, ended up, we had to gradually bring him back, from all of that sleeping. And so he started off with, participating for about 3 hours a day and then sleeping, but we gradually increased his work time so that by like January or February, he was working until from 8:45 until 2:20 each day. He got a break at 2:20 each day to sit down. We did move the couch out at Christmas time. And so he had, it just gradually went away. So we saw instruction and participation in instruction every day, all day from our students. Every student made academic gains and every student made communication gains. And though we did not eliminate the significant behaviors that they had been displaying at the beginning of the year and in years previous, there was a huge reduction in their behaviors. They felt safe in our room. They had a way to communicate what was going on and they were learning. It was really exciting to see what happened. Student 1, I'll just go through real quickly. Most of the letters, most of the days of the week, spelled his own name, placed sentences in correct order with predictable chart writing. We did not get to constructing consonant, vowel, consonant words, but I think, with continued instruction, he would have gotten there. Developed number concepts to 6 and identified numerals to 9. Communicative functions increased for him significantly. He could tell us when he wasn't feeling good, which was really important because he didn't feel good a lot. He could give us opinions. Obviously, he could make requests, but so many more communicative functions than he was using before. Student 2 understood the value of money and weight. He would pay for objects, so part of our activities was that we would give him objects to buy, and he would pay for them with the correct coin and dollar values. He took over preparing individual snacks for our classroom by weight. So we wrote down what we needed, how many of each snack we needed, and how much they needed to weigh, and he would prepare those snacks. And we did that through a work schedule. So it was an individual schedule beyond his daily schedule that he followed. Read and comprehended digital and print material. Followed his written schedule 100% of the day, limited to the 20-minute break at the end of the day. Made huge gains with that student. Student 3 was one of our students with direct speech language services, identified again most letters most of the days of the week, spelled his own name, placed sentences in correct order with his predictable chart writing. His communicative functions increased by 25% that year, including more commenting, more opinions, and then more functions. And the reason we have this data is because he was followed by the head direct services, and she used the communication matrix to follow his language development, increased his MLU by 18% and decreased adult prompting by 24%, which was huge for him, being able to initiate. The 4th student, again with direct speech language services, engaged in academic activities for up to 90 minutes, indicated letters versus numbers and vice versa. So when we were doing an activity, he understood whether we were talking about letters or numbers. Increased his communicative actions by 19%, which was huge for him, and increased his initiation of communication by 78%. And I'm not sure if those were just not recognized by previous classrooms, but anytime he came up to us, we recognized that as him having something to say. Anytime he approached us, we jumped in and made comments like, "You're coming towards me, you're looking at me, you're looking at your book, looks like you have something to say." So his initiation was increased by 78%. Huge gains for our students. This is him, that student in particular. This is the same student with the goal of increasing his participation in non-preferred activities from 1 to 10 minutes. And I remember this day so distinctly because we had come in from our lunchtime break, and he went right to group instruction. Right, and sat down waiting for it to begin. So, I think about, in previous years, this was probably a non-preferred activity, but there he was waiting for it to begin and would stay right there and participate in the instruction. So for me, huge win, huge win for him. What would I change? If I were to go back and look at anything to change, I would have made more emphasis on writing. And now that I've been through the conventional and literacy trainings, I would know better to do more. That would have been something I would change. I would have encouraged or demanded really that literacy instruction and communication support started much earlier in their school careers. These are students in their teens and early 20s. And had we started this literacy and communication supports and math instruction in their early years, how much further ahead they would be, and where would they be at 13, 14, 17, and 23 had we done that. The other thing that I would have changed was I would have made this classroom a model classroom for other districts to come and to kind of see that we can take students with really challenging behaviors and make it happen, because it can happen. What we did, I'm not showing their faces, but these 2 women were instrumental in making it happen. They believed, they took a leap of faith, and made it happen in our classroom. And I can't give them enough gratitude for taking on this unknown and believing in me and going along with whatever we did to make it happen for them. Could not have happened without these 2 ladies. This is hard work. Our team took on a huge task, really. We demonstrated that literacy, math, and communication can be taught and learned by students at the secondary level. And all of this progress happened in 1 school year. 9 months. I regret to say that my initial plan when I went into the classroom was to work 3 years. I was forced to retire at the end of that school year due to health issues. And the teacher who took over that classroom continued on with the instruction 1 additional year. And then administratively, things changed and went back to the status quo. It's my understanding that things have gone back to the way they were before, which is really disheartening for me because I know these guys would have made such tremendous progress in 2 or 3 more years' time. We have a lot of time to teach our students, and I think we need to take that time to really spend our energy focusing on communication so that our students can be taught and can learn. And that's where we need to go. So if you have other questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to chat. That's my email. Again, I'm happy to chat with you if you have questions about how we did things or how things went. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Laura. What great experience and insights. I really appreciate the things that you shared with us today. And I know this will be a great thing for our participants in the conference, but hopefully they can share those ideas and the growth opportunities that can come, and really just that realizing that kids can learn and that they can do amazing things if we give them the chance. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Any last words that you want to share?
No, I so appreciate this opportunity, Melissa. You have no idea. So I appreciate it.
We are thrilled to have you. For those watching the session, feel free to reach out to Laura. Her information is there, and you can reach her with Taylor Education Consultants. And I think she would be a great resource for you if you have questions or concerns or thoughts. Laura, thank you again for participating in AAC in the Cloud, and we hope you guys will catch another session soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.